And welcome back to another episode of Casey Campbell's video cast. Of course, I'm Casey Campbell with Great Lakes Post. And joining me right now is the superintendent of Howell Public Schools, Mr. Erin McGregor. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Casey. Thanks for having me.
It's been a very busy time for you, of course, with all the changes and, of course, the governor's announcement earlier this month that in-person instruction has been suspended for the rest of the 2019-20 school year. What has the district been up to in that, and how is the online learning process going?
So I want to count our blessings because we've been a little more well-positioned than most districts because we already had a one-to-one program for our students. And so each of our students, 6th through 12th grade, had a device that was actually a take-home device. And so that was already in place. K-5, we had devices, but they were at school. So it was still a one-to-one environment, but they were at school. So we just flipped that pretty quickly and then said, okay, K-5 is also going to take those home. So as far as delivery of instruction, we had that capability. Extremely fortunate that our community supported our technology bond back in 2015 to allow us to purchase those devices. So that kicked that off. We developed what's called our continuity of learning plan requirement through the executive order. And again, that was really a plan that allowed us to advance our curriculum. So prior to the new executive order coming out, we were really just kind of doing some engagement activities with our kids. Once that new order came out and we had to get our continuity of learning plan in place, we started to advance our curriculum. So we started to do new activities with our kids. And I just want to give our teachers and our principals a ton of credit because within a 2-week period, we've really flipped our whole domain to allow this to happen. And they deserve a ton of credit for what they've done because I think our kids are engaged. We're moving forward as best we can. We still have some obstacles with families that don't have internet access, but we're addressing those as they come and again, doing the best we can. So certainly a challenging situation, but really proud of the team here in Howell.
Now with the school year complete, there's still a few things that have to be settled regarding some high school seniors. The million-dollar question. Well, there's two of them. What happens with prom? What happens with graduation? Have you kind of talked about that?
So I'll try to be as direct as possible, Casey. Our continuity of learning plan had 3 goals. One was to make sure we remain connected with kids. So how do we make sure those relationships that we had in place when school was in session, that those continue in this environment? Second goal was to advance our curriculum. Third goal was to celebrate and honor our kids. And so that comes to your question of how do we, and really for the most part, how do we do the best job we can for our seniors? Feel absolutely terrible for the class of 2020. This is not what was supposed to be in the script for them. But we are doing some things right now virtually. Right, we have currently going on a virtual decision week to celebrate all the different pathways our seniors are taking. Some are going to college, some are starting a career, some are starting in the military. So we're trying to be intentional around celebrating those pathways. As far as those in-person graduation, prom, we're not able to continue with those. Are we able to do that later this summer? I hate to put it back on you, Casey, but that is the million-dollar question because maybe come May 15th, once this executive order takes its course, maybe there's the ability for us to do some smaller group gatherings. We have some planning going around bringing people together, of course, social distance guidelines, and maybe in some smaller groups to at least celebrate our graduates. I think as far as a traditional, in-person 4,000 people in attendance kind of graduation, unfortunately, that's something that's probably not in the cards for the summer. But we will have a celebration for our seniors. It just hasn't come to fruition as far as what that looks like. That's been our focus is graduation. Prom, I want to give a lot of credit to our facility, our banquet hall, Crystal Gardens. They've actually said, listen, if we're able to do this later in the summer, the facility's here for you to be able to utilize. But that's still going to be a challenge.
Talking about a lot of the other things that are happening in the district, of course, what could it look like next year? Are you guys considering, or maybe we need more maybe some direction for the governor. But are you considering maybe starting the year earlier, maybe July, August, because there's kids have been out of the classroom since the second week of March? Is that something that you as a district are considering, or are you waiting for more direction from the state?
So first of all, Casey, I've gotten really good at saying I don't know in the last month, and that's probably
They
not
say
an
it a
answer
lot
you
too.
want
So
to hear. But again, I've gotten more comfortable with that. So what we are doing, because I don't know and I don't have a crystal ball, we are doing scenario planning around some various scenarios. Are we going to change the calendar next year? I can say that that's very unlikely. We actually have a collective bargaining agreement with our teachers union, and we already have the calendar established for next year. So I don't see the calendar changing for next year. Does it change in the years to come? Possibly. But what we're planning for in the fall are some different scenarios. One, do we start out remotely again? And so we'll be ready for that. If we have to start out remote learning, then we will do that. Two, scenario of do we start and then do we have a closure, a few weeks into the year because, some additional cases that come forward in the district or in the county. We'll be prepared for that, kind of like what we just had to do in the last month. We're also looking at starting back just, at traditional face-to-face instruction, but with some social distancing guidelines. So that's going to be challenging. I mean, having, 500 students in an elementary building and then expecting them to be 6 feet apart for the entire school day is going to have to be well planned for. And it's going to be a challenge. And so we're even contingency planning around that as far as maybe some different schedules of the school day. So how do we maybe create some situations where there's not as many kids in the school at one time? Again, I don't have a crystal ball with any of those things, but I do want our families to know and our students to know that we're planning for all those different scenarios.
As the issue is with kids, kids always want to go up. I mean, younger kids particularly always want to go up, touch each other, hug each other, shake hands. It's what we're accustomed to doing. Now, you kind of talked about the staggered schedules a little bit. Would it mean some kids would come in the afternoon, some kids would come in the morning, some kids would come in the afternoon? I know some kindergartens do that around districts around. Is that something that you're considering as well?
Yeah, so it's some different things. I mean, Casey, for me, it's hard for me to get used to this new norm of I shake hands. That's what I like to do. I mean, I want it. So it's been hard for everybody, let alone, a 5-year-old. But I think with, like we do with all of our students, there's going to have to be some new learning around what does school look like for kids. And so I think our kids are capable of learning some new things, some new protocols, some new procedures that they're going to have to just execute. So I think we'll be okay there. As far as different schedules, so there's pros and cons with different schedules. I do think that we're going to have some guidance from the state to allow us to do some things differently. So for instance, right now, there's a 180-day requirement for schools, as well as a 1,098 hours of instruction that's required. If those things stay as is, I think it's going to be very challenging for a school district to develop, staggered schedules or altered schedules because, an AM PM kind of schedule gets very cost prohibitive with transportation because you're doubling up on transportation. I think something that we've talked about a little bit is like an altered day. So like for us, school colors, green day, gold day. So, but again, the only way that happens is if the state says, we're gonna take a look at that 180-day requirement and maybe be a little more flexible with that.
Yeah.
But again, we're planning, and what I want to be prepared for is once the state does provide some guidance, we've put thought and planning into what those scenarios are.
Yeah, another new thing that possibly could be in the King, everyone could be wearing a mask. Have you ever thought about that? Like wearing like a face covering while you're learning, teachers wearing a face covering. I mean, I saw a video like when China came back to school one day, everyone was wearing a mask. Is that so? And I'm envisioning that in my head as I kind of talk about that. Could that be something that's in the cards? It looks like masks are here to stay.
Yeah, I think they are, Casey. And I mean, just as we're gradually getting back into somewhat of a work structure as opposed to just working from home, when I'm at work now, well, albeit there's only essential people on staff that are at work, but we're all wearing masks, and that's I don't like it. I'll be honest, it's uncomfortable and it's not always great, but I think it's one of those requirements that we're going to have to get used to make sure our again our people that are in our society that are immune compromised are safe. And so I don't know. It's like I said, I'm getting used to I don't know, and if that's what we need, and we will certainly do that. But it's going to come with challenges for sure.
Yeah.
I think something I heard today, Casey, too, is like there's no perfect plan, because we can't simply address every single scenario, but we can improve on what we're doing, and that's what we're going to try to do is take what we're currently doing and improve on that. And I think that it'll at least mitigate the fact that the disease will spread to other people.
Yeah. Also, going back to the graduation question, when is a significant deadline of when you can have like a set date of either maybe you're going to get creative in what you do, and I can't wait to see what all these districts do. But when is the set deadline of when graduation, if you could hold out hope, is maybe get some together or something like that? When is the deadline, you think?
I know you want to hold me to a deadline, but this is what I can tell you is that I've actually done some Zoom meetings the past week and a half with our student leadership kids. And so, student council leaders from all the different classes, and meeting with some student leaders of the senior class was very beneficial for me to hear from them. One, they're having a hard time, and yet at the same time, I'm so impressed with their just grit and determination through this, because they've really, they were impressive with me with regards to kind of them thinking about that their perspective is going to change with this. They're going to have a better perspective on life after this. And for them to articulate that, I was very impressed. Point with my connection with them is they did tell me, and again, I'm not going to say that every student speaks with the same voice, but it was clear to me that like once we get into August and they start doing next year's plans, some are going to be going to college and some are going to be starting a career, that once we get into that August time period, they're going to take that next step, and they're not going to be, I think their mind is going to be focused on what's next, as opposed to coming back. Like if we have to bring people back from college to do a ceremony, I just don't think that's in the cards. And they said that. And so anyways, with all that, I think we really need to look at a July time period that we do something for them, whatever that might be, because after that, again, they're off to their next chapter in their lives.
Correct. Well, Superintendent McGregor, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. You got a lot of decisions to make on your hand, and I wish you the best, and you're doing a great job in your district.
Casey, thanks so much for having me. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.